Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Hope everyone had a very, very good week. We find ourselves in the middle of the 9 days, actually in the middle of the 3 weeks. We're about to start the 9 days this Shabbos, and time to figure out how best to tap into the avoda that we find ourselves in the 3 weeks. And I wanted to share a thought in Parashat Matos Masai that perhaps can help us tap in, because one of the biggest challenges we find is how do we tap in to the loss of the Beis Hamikdash, to the Churban Habayis, something that we really do not properly relate to, do not connect to in a meaningful way. And it's a real challenge to go ahead and tap into the Churban Habayis. On some level, I wish I lived in the Southern Hemisphere. Because in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the middle of the winter, and you can you're in school, and you can work on this avoda, but we find, for us in the Western Hemisphere, the Northern Hemisphere, where it's summer vacation and people are in camps and people are looking to go swimming and do all these things, it's a tough time of year to properly tap into the avoda. So just a short idea in the parasha, one that I think I've said before, and then perhaps to tie it into the 3 weeks. So the Shvatim of Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe, they come to Ever LaYarden, and they see this wonderful, lush land. And they tell Moshe Rabbeinu, this is pretty good. We don't really want to cross the Yarden and settle over there. This is pretty good. Let us stay here. Let us build our communities here. And they make the request. This is found in Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Tes Zayin. Vayikshoy love, they approach Moshe Rabbeinu v'yomru gidros tzo nivneh limiknenu. Let us build our pens for our cattle over here. Po v'arim letapenu. Let us build cities over here for our children, rather than crossing into Canaan. Moshe Rabbeinu ultimately accedes to that request, and he tells them, though, the very, very sharp comment which Chazal pick up on. You want to settle here? Okay, I'll agree. Binu lachem arim letapchem ugdeiros letzonchem v'hayotz mipichem ta'asu. I'll let you build cities for your children and pens for your cattle. But notice what Moshe does in his response. They requested pens for their cattle, cities for their children. Moshe flipped it. Says, your priorities are wrong. They're off. There's something fundamentally flawed about how you ask the question. What's drawing you to settle here in Ever LaYarden? Yeah, it's good land. It's lush. It's fertile. There's a lot of things that are positive on a material level over here. We'd rather stay here because we're going to make it big. Parnas is going to be great. Our material opportunities are awesome. And yeah, we'll also build Arim L'Tapenu. And Moshe says, well, if this is where you want to be, we'll let. You'll have to come join us in conquering the land. You'll have to come join us in settling the land. But yeah, you want your ultimate settling place to be over here and not join us on our destiny on the other side of the Yarden? We'll let. But you're going to build Arim L'Tapchem, and then pens L'Tzonchem, and then pens for your cattle. Now that Moshe taught them a fundamental lesson. They were prioritizing their materialism over their families. The Gidros L'Tzonchem over Arim L'Tapchem. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, nothing doing. Slow down. Make sure you have your sense of priorities correct. And Rashi already points out that they had to come in and help Klal Yisrael conquer the land. That was part of their mission. Conquering the land took 7 years. And then they had to settle the land, help the Jewish people, the rest of the Shvatim settle the land. And that also took 7 years. So 14 years, the men of Shevet Reuven, Shevet Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe were away from their families. And when they came back, the Medrash describes they couldn't recognize their kids. Their kids who they left as 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they came back and they were adults, full-blown adults. They didn't recognize their children because they prioritized materialism over their families. And that was the Midah connected Midah that when they finally returned home, they missed the boat. You'll ask, what does that have to do with us? Well, sometimes you do have people that get so involved in work, so involved in parnasa, so involved in the acquisition of material assets, that they sometimes forget the things that are most important. They forget their families. They're so busy with their tzom that they forget their taf. And that is the message that Moshe Rabbeinu wants to share with Shevet Ruvain, Shevet Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe. You'll ask me, what does that have to do with the 3 weeks? And I'll tell you, I think it has everything to do with the 3 weeks. Because one of our challenges, the Gemara in Yuma Daf Tes tells us that the reason for the Churban Bayis Sheni was Sinas Skina. And our Balei Musar teach us that the cure of Sinas Skina is Avas Skina, is Chesed. The Chavetz Chaim wrote a sefer called Avas Chesed. And if you look at that sefer, he doesn't speak just about doing Chesed. He speaks about Ahavas Chesed, over and over and over again. Loving Chesed, becoming a persona that embodies Chesed, that is looking to help and be there for other people. And anyone will tell you, Chesed is critical for our community, but perhaps most important, Chesed begins and starts in the home. And to have that sense of Chesed, being there for our children, being there for our parents, being there for our siblings, and then yes, taking that sense of Chesed, of Avas Chinam, and then taking it forward. That is how we rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. I will tell you, as many of you know, unfortunately, I'm in the middle of a second year of Avelos. I lost my mother first, and then towards the end of the Avelos, my father passed away. And one thing I feel very, very blessed by is both towards the end of my mother's life and towards the end of my father's life, I had the opportunity to really be with my parents, to be with my parents every single day, to spend time, quality time, talking to them, just sharing, reminiscing, and knowing and understanding that we're not here forever, to have the opportunity to really bond with the most important people in a person's life. And that's the lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to impart on Shevet Ruvain, Shevet Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe. Do not get distracted by the three-ring circus that is this world and miss the boat on the things that are most important. Make sure we're focused on that sense of Avas Chesed, on the things in our house, our mishpachos, and the people that are in our closest orbit. When we do so, then we'll start to make that tikkun. I remember bringing one of my children many, many years ago when they were little small children to the circus. I think the circus is no longer the Barning or the Ringling Brothers Circus. Choshev Circus, Madison Square Garden, 3 rings. There was the ring that had the elephant trainer doing amazing things, and there was the trapeze artists, and then there was a guy being shot out of the cannon. Amazing things. And I remember bringing my little son, probably 3 years old at the time, Zachariah, to the circus. There was amazing things going on, real everything, such action. And then there was a guy in front of us, a kid, who had this light on a string that was twirling it around and around and around. And my son, he was focused on that kid with the light, twirling it around. And he missed out. He was trying to point, look at the elephants, look at the tigers, look at the trapeze guy, look at the cannon guy. And all he was focused on was the little kid in front of him with that light on the string, just twirling it around. All too often, we sometimes get distracted by the little things, by the Gidros Tzom, the Miknechem. And the message that Moshe is teaching us, and perhaps the most important message of these days that we find ourselves, is to prioritize the chesed, prioritize the mishpacha, prioritize the things that are truly important. And Mirz Hashem, then we'll be zocheh to have a rebuilt Beis HaMikdash from Hei Rav Yamein.